What's going on, everybody? How you doing? In today's video, we are doing another interview off of the bonus material from R30. This is a 2002 interview with Alex and Geddy on Vapor Trails, which is cool because that was pretty recent. So we're going to check this out. I thought that I caught all the interviews from Vapor Trails, but apparently not. So we're going to do that now. If you're new here, please subscribe, check out my videos, all kinds of videos, all kinds of ways to donate, and donation request videos and all that stuff is in the description. Check it out. Let's get to this interview. 2002. Bam.
In many countries of the world, we are still kind of a cult band in a way. Because we don't have huge pop success, although we have, you know, in a rock sensibility, we have obviously garnered success and can do well as a touring act, and we sell records and all that. But
right.
Because we're not a band like Bryan Adams or, you know, bam, bam, bam out there in the mainstream, I don't think we've been overcooked in those media areas. I mean, there were times in our career, of course, that we could have done certain things. Like,
where are they?
We always get asked to do these television shows where you perform late night TV and stuff like that, which we always thought was kind of bogus for a band like us.
Wow.
And I still think it's true. Bands rarely sound, real rock bands that play hard music rarely sound good in those situations. It probably cost us some mainstream exposure, but at the end of the day, it felt right.
Yeah.
And we've always, good or bad, smart or stupid, I don't know, we've just kind of flown by the seat of our pants with a lot of those decisions.
Let's talk about the brand new record. I love the choice for the first single and the placement of it on the record in terms of sequencing, because you really do announce your arrival.
Yeah, it didn't start out that way because we had no idea that song would end up the way it did, but once we had a vision of how that song was going to be, it soon became clear that that was an important statement to make, you know, that we're back and we're celebrating something here, and especially with Neil starting it off, you know. And the fury of him playing just was just the right thing.
Yeah, completely appropriate.
What was the first line of discussions?
Yep.
Do you remember a phone call? Someone getting a phone call?
Well, we heard from Neil that he was ready to talk about going back to work, and we arranged to get together. And
you referred to it as work?
Cool.
Well, I think the phrase that he used was, I think it's time for me to seek some gainful employment. Which I thought boded well for the future because it was so funny.
And we got together and we just talked about things. It was a very kind of loose meeting. It probably took place about 6 months before we started working on the record. Geddy was in the middle of working on My Favorite Headache. And we talked about scheduling, when to start. We were all a little bit apprehensive, I think. Weren't sure whether it was really going to work out. And that really went over to the actual beginning of the project. We spent a lot of time just talking. The first couple of weeks, I don't think we played a single note. We just talked a lot. And very slowly we got into the whole, you know, machine.
It was a very interesting atmosphere when we first got together, you know. It was like we were all so pleased to be with each other. And, you know, as soon as you get the three of us together, it's not long before stupid jokes start flying, you know, and we start kibitzing with each other. And that was so pleasant and so familiar, you know. It was, but at the same time, there was an emotional quotient that was kind of in the air and not very far from the surface. And I think it was the residue of all the difficulties. And so it was like...
I mean,
walking around on tenterhooks a little bit early on and making sure we kind of settled in. And at the same time, there was a familiarity of, oh my God, how many times have we done this before? Can we actually make any meaningful music together anymore after all this time? So it was such a strange mix of things in the air, you know. I think it was a bit daunting, and that's why I think we talked. I think we were kind of afraid in a way to start playing. We just talked and talked and talked, and then eventually we started playing, and it was whatever we were playing was just really boring.
Yeah,
very uninteresting, and we said, okay, there's
Okay, that tells
let's
us
talk
something.
some more or something. It took time, but we got to a point where suddenly we started to feed off each other, and boy, that was a glorious feeling. I can't tell
Yeah,
you.
it really clicked. We worked very hard for 2 or 3 months and got seemingly nowhere. In fact, we did, but we took a short break and came back, and it was very clear to us where the direction of the record needed to go. And once we started, it really, we've said this many times, it took a life of its own, and we really went along for a ride with it. Everything was very natural and instinctive from that point on.
In 1977, there was an interview in Cream magazine. I was reading, we have a huge file of old articles, and I think the writer asked you what's been the key to Rush's success at this point, and Geddy said perseverance.
Ah, I did?
That was 77.
Geez, 77.
Yeah.
Well, I was about 6 years old.
No, sadly you weren't.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's easier to persevere, obviously, when you have a huge fan base that we have. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you can belittle the contribution that our fans have made to our being able to persevere, It's one thing to say you stuck it out. I mean, hell,
Right.
they've been so willing to put up with our experiments on vinyl and now on those stupid little things. You have to accept that as
Stupid.
when you're making a record. Of course, you make it for yourself, and you make it to get off on it, and you want to feel good about what you're doing. You want to prove to yourself in some way that you're getting better, and you've found some new twist on writing or playing. But you have to credit a fan base with giving you the confidence to do that in some way. Even though you're not writing for them, you're certainly not considering their opinion when you're in the room. Their being there knows that there's a welcome for you, whatever experiment you decide to do. And that gives you confidence. There's no question about it. Yeah, well, we take each other for granted, for sure.
Yeah, but
that's part of it.
Yeah, that's okay. I think with this record, I was pleasantly surprised by Geddy's approach to how he used the bass to take up a little more space in the overall sound. And I think this came from his writing his solo record on the bass and playing a lot of bass chords. That was something new for him, playing all these chordal things, and that immediately got me in another direction. I started playing more as a bass player, single note patterns. So we exchanged roles in a way, and that for me was a bit of a catalyst to go in a different direction.
This break has made me better able to appreciate his talents and his strengths and the way he likes to work, instead of insisting that it be this way. He doesn't like to do what's obvious, ever. He likes to do something in a completely unusual way, and he has to feel that there's something fresh, there's a new angle on it. Even though he may end up in the more direct approach, he has to go through a process to do that. And sometimes in the past I haven't been very patient with that, or appreciated how important that could be.
Both ways.
And now I think I do appreciate that aspect of what he does. And, so I think this many years down the road, we're, again, learning new things about each other, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. I mean, most people break up from bands because they get bored after 6 months. Well, are they bored, or they just don't want to work at doing something,
First show what I read was 1968, I believe. One of the mics was a lamp, was a floor lamp.
Oh yeah, it was one of those. It was one of those old Electro Voice mics. The big chrome ones with the little on-off switch in the bottom.
No mic stand.
We had it taped to a lamp. We had no mic stand.
Yeah, that's good research.
One amp. Both of us plugged into the same amp.
Do you remember how much you
My
paid?
amp.
Did you get paid?
$10.
We had enough so we could go to the delicatessen.
We went to
and chips with
Panzer's.
gravy afterwards.
Yeah.
And that was like awesome.
But I remember that night. I remember sitting in the restaurant and feeling on top of the world. It was so exciting. It was our first paid gig, $10.
For that.
Yeah, for that.
Yeah, we did a gig. We got paid. We were professional musicians. Certainly early on. when we first were out there, it was almost impossible to get airplay. In fact, I remember it was in the late 70s, a very clever A&R guy, national promotion guy from Mercury Records at the time, put a special sampler disc together called Everything You Wanted to Play by Rush But Were Afraid to. And he had like 10 of our songs on it and sent it around to all these radio stations. And it actually did start changing things. And then there was a period, a few years later where suddenly we became kind of a staple on American rock radio. So it really turned around.
Tom Sawyer.
It turned around, as you suggest, as a result of how much success we'd had as a touring act and the reputation we had as a touring act. And we were out there constantly opening for everybody when we couldn't headline, and headlining small venues when we could headline.
Those first few tours, we played 250 shows a year, plus we would make 2 records in that same time.
Yeah.
It was
huge.
Unbelievable.
And this last record, we spent 14 months making it.
Yeah.
I mean, how times have changed. We were talking about the other day, I think we recorded Fly By Night.
5 days. First album was in 4 days.
Yeah.
Crescent Steel was a week.
Yeah. I mean, we've spent more time working on the arrangement for Ghost Rider.
On one song.
And I remember we finished that album, Fly By Night, and we got on a plane and went to Winnipeg and did a gig.
That's right.
That night, we
finished early in the morning.
4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Went home and, got dressed and changed and whatever.
Got an early flight to Winnipeg.
Playing this gig with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like such a
Winnipeg Symphony
gig.
Orchestra?
We were opening for them.
Yeah, we opened for the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra. What I understand is that at some point in their lives, our music has made a connection. And in a lot of ways, it's usually a healing connection or an inspiring connection. And that has stayed with them. And in some way, it has made such a bond with what we do. And because I think when you combine that with the fact that we're not really a mainstream band, and in some ways, in their mind, we're always kind of fighting the good fight out there, it's made them very loyal and made them appreciate, what we do. It's the kind of stuff that you can't really think about very often.
I think we recognize that there is respect for the band, and I think a lot of it comes from the fact that we've been together for 33 years or whatever it is. We've managed in a business where it's notoriously short-lived. We've managed to maintain our beliefs, and our standards throughout this whole period. We've worked very hard to do things the way we believe it should be done. We've been loyal and true to our music, to our art, and that's a difficult thing to do in the music business. And I think there is a level of respect from all different areas, from the business itself and from fans and from other bands and even people that don't particularly like our music. Yeah. They see that there is a way to do things your own way and be successful and be true and honest with yourself.
Cool. Nice. Yeah, some of those stories are wild. Super wild. All that early stuff, the things that you have to do. And it's just like, I suppose a lot of it in a way is easier because you're younger, like you couldn't be doing that kind of thing, like just slogging it out like that in that same kind of way when you're 20 years older. You're just not going to want to do it. Your life experience, everything's different. It's different, right? But when you're younger, it's like, okay, yeah, let's just make this work. Let's just make it happen. Yeah, great, fantastic. And everything in that kind of way is kind of exciting. Things can be a downer, kind of like how Neil was saying in that other interview, the one yesterday about, when he joined Rush and they already had signed some deal to tour in the U.S. and he was like, yeah, whatever, I've heard that before kind of thing, because that's a thing. It's like, oh yeah, I know so-and-so, I'm going to talk to this person and you guys, I'm going to hook you up with these people. And then, and it's like, okay, yeah. At first it's all exciting. It's like, wow, really? Oh, wow, cool. And then it's like, that shit never happened. What are you talking about? Forget that guy. All that kind of thing. To them doing Vapor Trails and having to kind of reconnect after a long time, a real long time for them. Yeah, it's kind of I want to know also, where were they with all the stuff on the wall? Like, were they had like, you know, that whole Power Windows thing on the wall? So where were they? Where was this filmed? I don't know. I have no idea where it was filmed. No clue. But I'm kind of interested. Like, is it somebody's house? Can you imagine just having... I mean, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. Like, you got your... I don't know. Somebody's place. Or studio or something like that, maybe. Anyways, pretty cool. Okay, now we're getting into these the Anthem Vault performances. Gonna do all of this stuff. Should be pretty cool. It's ranges from Fly By Night and Finding My Way in the Mood to, you know, Free Will, Closer to the Heart, all that kind of thing. So we're gonna be checking those out next. I'll catch you in the next video.